Welcome to Astro Mondays, everybody. I'm super excited to be hosting you here, and we're waiting for Christopher Witecki to come up. I actually just picked up my other phone and I did a Google. Look at this. This is according to Google's AI. Astrologer Christopher Witecki is considered the first astrologer on YouTube. He has appeared in over 19,000 videos on the YouTube channel, Namaste Today, which is longest running astrology, blah, 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 blah. And he does stand-up astrology, and he has his own platform called Serious Joy. Guys, this is actually one of my favorite pieces of content that I get to be a part of, because it's like a weekly roundup of what is to be. It's a map. It's something that we can look at, something that we can even rely on. For the last few months that I've been honored to have these conversations with Chris. And for those of you guys who have joined and listened, share some of the takeaways that you guys have had from doing it every single week for over a year now. And definitely a lot of the decisions in the Human Garage crew are based off of the relationship we have with Chris. What's up, man?
Hey, buddy. Wow, I didn't know I was going to be with you today, but that's awesome.
Yeah,
Good
it
to see
was
you, Raw.
last minute. Gary traveling. Need
Yeah,
something.
there's a lot of last minute stuff happening. So,
Yeah,
the world is in a new transition. How you doing, man?
amazing. Yeah, everything good with you in Palm Springs?
Yeah, pretty much, man. Like Mars is retrograde right now, and I have been so tired. Like I've been sleeping like crazy. Have you had any energy issues?
Well, today especially, I mean, I usually always get up before my wife, and this morning Carol like woke me up and she was like, "Hey, it's late." Like it's super, like she was like like me like, "Hey, you're in bed way past the time you normally get up."
Okay.
So,
Okay, so you are feeling it. Yeah.
yeah.
It's been a little well for men especially. I mean, men are reporting it like low libido, low motivation. It's because Mars, our ruling planet, is retrograde right now, and it's in Leo. So right now, it's really getting to the core of like what motivates us. But I wasn't feeling it at first, but like over the weekend, man, it just hit me like a brick.
That's all right. So men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and so Mars goes into retrograde. It really affects men. Does it affect women at all? Like how
Venus
does
does. When Venus retrogrades, it affects women.
okay.
I mean, everyone is affected. I mean, women are affected too, but for women, it's not so much. I don't think it's as potent as for us, right? And I think for women, it's kind of for them, it's a searching of the heart, and for men, it's a searching of what to do.
What else does Mars represent? Like, I mean, I know there's like the connection, but is there anything else interesting that you can say about Mars and men and
Oh
humans?
yeah. Well, yin and yang energy. Yin is Venus, yang is Mars. So Mars is our ability to do. It rules our ego. And our ego is a part of us that actually only comes on earth. It doesn't follow us to heaven when we reincarnate. So it's tied to our ability to survive. It's tied to our defenses. It's tied to our personality, our actions, and whatnot. And so Mars is retrograde for 6 full weeks. It's already started December 6th. No, actually, not 6 full weeks. Excuse me. It's all the
18,
way until February. Yeah.
25th.
And
I
yeah,
learned that from you.
yeah, totally. I'm thinking of a different transit. Sorry about that. And it actually is right now in Leo at 4 degrees. So this is probably the most, right now, we've moved into Capricorn this week, but this is probably the most soul searching week you're going to have, ironically, between Christmas and New Year's. So soul searching in the sense that Mars is at 4, which means we're trying to struggle to find where it is exactly we need to be loving ourselves and loving ourselves differently.
But it's somehow related to physical reality, right? To like this reality that we're in.
Oh yeah, I mean Mars with the retrograde. Well, it's Mars is at 4 degrees Leo, so it's really internal right now. This Mars
Okay.
retrograde is internal. However, Mars will continue into Cancer, and when it goes into Cancer, it'll be external, which is sort of what actions do we take to set up a nurturing life for emotional security. So we'll start questioning emotional security and the nurturing necessary to have what our heart wants. But I didn't want to just go off on Mars right away. It just happens to be what's affecting me right now, man. I've been tired for the last 3 days.
I mean, I feel like since I learned about Mars in retrograde and what you said is to be expected, that's exactly what's been happening, and I haven't been rushing into launching anything. However, there's a lot happening on the back end in terms of like system reorientation um, and rest.
Hmm.
So that's
Okay.
how I've used it personally.
Interesting. Well, we're now in Capricorn. So, the astrology of this week is we came out of Sag. Last week in Sagittarius was pretty intense because there was a lot of story changes and narrative changes. People might have changed their mind about things. People might have announced something suddenly. You might have decided to end something or start something kind of major in your life. And it might have happened last minute. And then we went into Capricorn on Saturday. That's winter solstice. And Capricorn is the energy of how we make decisions. And in the first 10 days of Capricorn and all this week, you'll be making new decisions for yourself, new commitments to yourself. This is really actually, ironically, this is the New Year's resolution kind of energy.
Okay.
It's funny how astrology completely supports it, but this whole week we're like, you're basically examining, the year you just had, and you may or may not be happy with your progress, or you may not be happy with parts of yourself. And so in this week of Christmas, we're actually in the background thinking to ourselves, we need to make new decisions for ourselves, decisions to change. And today we're at step 2, which means we're making new decisions based on how we feel about ourselves. So, new commitments. And I call it self discipline. I mean, ultimately, your self discipline is the decisions you make for yourself and then the following through of that.
Okay. And we're going to just go through the whole step system for that. New decisions.
Yeah, we're going to decide for our feelings today, commit to a certain belief about ourselves tomorrow. And then on Christmas Day, we commit to where we belong with ourselves as far as our heart's concerned. So Mars actually, it's funny, Mars goes to 3 on step 5, which is funny because Mars is at 4 Leo right now. And on Christmas, we're at 4 Capricorn. So come Capricorn, you decide what side of your heart you belong on, which is Christmas. And then from that point on, you make commitments to yourself, how to think about yourself, how to relate to yourself, step 6, the faith you're going to have in yourself, step 7. Step 8 is the overall commitment to yourself. Sorry, we had a loud plane here.
I don't care.
Um, and then step 9 is usually step 9, there'll be a new moon where we now say, that's it, I'm putting this into action. So you're going to feel very motivated this year for New Year's resolutions more than you ever have. And this is due to just the whole array of the year. For one, this whole year was a major transformation year. People faced their karma. People expanded their mind with Jupiter and Gemini. A lot of major life changes grew their values in Uranus and Taurus. And so this year, when we're making decisions for ourselves, they're probably big conclusionary decisions, like things that we're going to, finally going to stop something or finally address something, and probably change profoundly this year. So I would say this would be one of the most powerful New Year's resolutions years we've had.
Okay. So take that seriously and start it. Like it's, if you feel the energy now, then roll with it.
Totally. And really remember, a decision is the first point of really controlling your life. It's also the way to manage your feelings. You have to decide that you want to feel differently to change how you feel something. Capricorn and Cancer are opposite signs. So as we are deciding for ourselves, we have the Earth in Cancer, the opposite sign. And so as we decide for ourselves, we're actually manifesting new feelings about ourselves. We change the way we feel about ourselves during this season.
Okay. Amazing. And then we, did we do a node thing recently?
Well, the nodes are currently still in Aries and Libra.
Okay.
They're at 2 degrees right now. So, in fact, today the sun is squaring the nodes. What that means is that we are being directed to move towards feeling about ourselves in a new way. And the South Node in Libra says it's time to, end old emotional patterns with yourself, where you fall into funks or you fall into depression or you feel guilty about stuff. So this week in particular, it's time to stop old ways of feeling about ourselves and aim towards a new way of feeling about ourselves. But the nodes move into a whole new sign in January. The North Node moves into Pisces and the South Node moves into Virgo. And what that means is, with the North Node in Pisces, we'll be now moving towards our next spiritual story. And with the South Node in Virgo, we'll see our lives transform. So what your life has been will begin to transform dramatically. And this will be a little bit of a challenge because we're so fixed to reality. Virgo is so real that when something happens and you just say this can't go on anymore, you don't know how to change it because it just seems so real and so fixed. And that's where the North Node of Pisces is. You have to have faith, follow your intuition, and you'll find the way. You'll find whatever the way is. But it does mean that reality becomes very uncomfortable with the South Node in Virgo. And next year looks to be pretty uncomfortable.
And why is it uncomfortable?
It's uncomfortable because many things will be changing next year. So we have Saturn moving into Aries. We have whoops. Okay. I got it. And it said something to me too, like in my iOS. We have Saturn moving to Aries for the first time in 30 years. We have Neptune moving into Aries for the first time since the Civil War. Not exactly sure how many years that's been. We have Uranus moving to Gemini, first time since World War II. So these slow moving planets, when they change sign in the same year, you know life is going to change pretty profoundly. So we're up, but I think we've already done the hard work. I think the hard work was ourself, right? That's what this year was, and last year, really working on ourselves, facing our demons, our shadow, ending old karmic patterns with ourselves. And now, next year, what you're going to see is those things carry out into the world. And it will be a new day for us because Saturn will be at 0 Aries and Neptune will be at 0 Aries and Uranus will be at 0 Gemini. So that will be a new world inside of ourselves.
Oh,
But
wow.
when you are different, the world is different, right? And your
Mhm.
perception of it.
Yeah, it starts with us. Do you have anything to say to people about Christmas? I mean, it's a big day for a lot of people. Usually, people are spending time around family. Is there anything to keep in mind regarding Christmas Day?
Well, Christmas Day is step 4, so there might be some breakdown. It's funny, step 4 often rules Christmas Day. And so quite often there is a breakdown with people and their heart and where they belong with their heart. Ironically, because Christmas is so positive, I think most people are naturally influenced to be on the right side of their heart and to love their heart on Christmas. So it's kind of like we're saved by the holiday in that regard. Um, but the moon will be in Scorpio, so people will be sort of sheltered, a little isolated, a little cold. The family might be a little cold this year with the moon in Scorpio, or hypersensitive to space and boundaries. But honestly, this week is mostly introspection, of figuring out what I want to commit to myself. And then later, right after Christmas, we start having some conclusions where we realize that we need to look at our life differently once we realize we have to look at ourselves differently. So I am predicting by the end of the week, and this is very New Year's, it's funny, the planets are speaking to this, but it's very atypical New Year's. We're going to be by the end of the week making decisions about how we look at our life differently and how also we want to approach our life differently. And that's mostly a square between Saturn and Jupiter at 14 degrees. And so what that basically means is our beliefs about what we think, and how we approach life. And then Saturn at 14 degrees Pisces is sort of how we think of our karmic era. So we turn a real corner this week, but I think it's very private. I don't think you're going to experience it in the world or with friends. It'll be something you just experience in your inner world.
Which we have the opportunity to do during these holidays. We have more
I
time
know.
and going to take a walk. I remember for the longest time, I always on Christmas Day just used to go be alone at the top of this mountain and
Wow.
overlook LA, and I would just feel the earth and how the earth felt on this day because to me it feels different. Like you said, on the holiday, everyone is mostly positively oriented, and I can feel the earth feels different on this day.
Yeah.
At least what I perceived was the earth, and
Yeah. What you feel.
right.
Well, the collective consciousness, I mean, even the people who don't celebrate Christmas are sort of on pause for the people who do. It's really dominated, the world, right? But there is a
Right.
calm, there is a peace on earth on Christmas. I find, and I think it's just collective. Everyone gets the day off. I mean, in America, we don't get many days off.
No.
So Christmas day off, I mean, any day off, we're just like Americans are just in a different funk, right? We have very few holidays, really,
Yeah,
compared to Europe and stuff.
this week especially is like the week. It's like the 25th to the 1st is like the most vacation, the most rest time, the most family, the most joy that we experience in USA. Like in terms of like days in a row, this is what we get. It's like these 6 or 7 days.
It's true. And it's like a weird time too because, TV repeats itself. You know, people don't really have to work a lot of times. You're between years. And it's funny because every year in this week, you're pretty much examining your commitments to yourself before New Year's. And you have this time off to do it. So it's funny how it works out that way. Really is.
Is there, yeah, so you're saying it does just kind of naturally work out with planets during this time. Is there accuracy to our actual New Year's being on January 1st, like astrologically speaking?
Astrology would argue New Year's is Halloween
Okay.
because that Halloween is well, really, New Year's is the full moon around Halloween. The full moon in Taurus is the birth of the new year. Opposing the sun in Scorpio is the death of the old year. So energetically, we're reborn actually around Halloween. I'm not sure how, New Year's got moved to Capricorn or how Christmas got moved to Capricorn either, frankly. I don't know the whole story, but I know it got moved there. It was placed by I think church officials. But the thing is it fits very well in Capricorn because at the beginning of the year, you are suddenly rebooting in your mind and you want a new start. And so Capricorn is the perfect sign for that, regardless. Scorpio is a good sign for it too, because you're sort of dividing. Scorpio is boundaries. So it's like, okay, that's the old, this is the new. That's the old, this is the new. Sort of sort between the two. But Capricorn is when you make decisions. So after this week of making decisions for ourselves, we're then going to start making decisions for our life. And that's what happens right after New Year's is decisions for our life, basically. And and how we want to therefore change some of our commitments in our life, probably to match the commitments in our inner self.
Okay. And then you mentioned Christmas being on December 25th, and that made me think of the winter solstice, which we're kind of still in that energy right now, right?
We're
And
just 2 days away. Yeah, winter solstice was Saturday.
right. And
To
then
step zero Capricorn.
and so there's these ancient, monolithic structures all over the world that are, pay really special attention to spring equinox and the solstices, winter and spring. Um, but I've heard that the Christmas day is representative of the shortest day of the year being December 21st, and then the sun actually doesn't start getting longer until the 25th. So there's kind of like this 3 day pause, which then of course is reflected in the Bible and the 3 days that Christ was in the tomb and yada yada yada. But then the sun gets essentially reborn on the 25th and starts getting longer and longer and longer. Don't know how much you subscribe to that or even how much I subscribe to that, but that's where I think December 25th being Christmas falls on that day for that
When
reason.
things start speeding up.
When the sun starts to get born again, starts to, yeah, more light starts to be cast on us on to the 25th all the way to the spring.
Interesting. I'm not sure why the church chose it. I think they squatted on a pagan holiday.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was a pagan holiday. There we go. Pagans on board. Yeah, there you go. Someone just came up with the same thing. So yeah, that was the
Yes,
reason. Yeah. I personally believe Christ was a Virgo and,
instead
and
of
was
Pisces.
and was born in I used to think he was a Pisces, but we're going off on a tangent here, but the Star of Bethlehem, they look at the astrology, and many astrologers believe, not all of them, that the Star of Bethlehem was actually Jupiter conjunct Venus conjunct Sirius.
Oh,
So
not you're talking about this. Okay, so when he was actually born.
he was actually born in Virgo. So if you look at the last time in 5 BC, in Virgo, Venus conjunct conjuncted Jupiter and conjuncted Sirius, which would have made this like superstar. It would have made it look like a huge star because three very bright objects were all within proximity or conjunct, as we say. So, anyways, it makes sense though because Virgo is the embodiment of spirit, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Jesus was a Virgo. He was a healer after all.
Right. And so that star they were following would have been the combination of those. Because there's nothing else that would make sense for that bright star in the for them to be following the three wise men.
I didn't study everything, but from what I understand, first of all, those objects, Sirius is the brightest star in the sky. Jupiter and Venus are the two brightest planets. So we do know if those three came together, it would have created what appeared to be another star or something bigger.
Yeah.
It would have glowed, tremendously. So that makes the most logical sense. But anyways, I feel like Jesus is probably a Virgo, not a Capricorn. No offense, Capricorns.
I actually like that. I like that because 5 BC is around zero, right? It's around the date where
Yeah.
that would happen, and we can explain it. We can look back historically and actually prove that the star existed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's well documented in history, that star. And the three wise men were actually astrologers. And here's the thing, those three stars were actually Sirius, Jupiter, and Venus were conjoined in Leo. That's why they said a king is being born. Is in Leo when a king is born. Yeah, a new king. Which is why, they went out trying to kill him. Because the king at the time thought, you know, didn't understand the
Taking
definition
away
of king.
power.
Yeah, different kind of king. But nonetheless, we're in that time in Capricorn. We're sort of dragging our feet and sort of making decisions for the year and wrapping things up and trying to feel differently. I think the big motive of Capricorn is actually the Earth in Cancer, which is to feel differently, to feel better about yourself, to feel better about your life, and to feel better about the future, which comes after in January. But Mars will be retrograde until February 23rd. So we're kind of like on hold. I don't think you're going to find a lot of major things happen. You might make some major decisions, but you probably won't implement them until late February. So we're sort of all just, what's the word, drifting until February.
February 23rd is what you're referring to.
Mars direct.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Venus will retrograde later in the year. So we also have our feminine energy go backwards as well. So it's a lot of, whenever you retrograde like this, you're really looking back over your past. You're looking at you're looking at your history. You're looking at what you've learned, sort of looking over your shoulder the whole time, which is why you're not moving forward. But you're coming to major conclusions because you're looking at, the past and you're conducting or deducting a new future.
I was just about to say, how would you reframe it for people? Because a lot of people think retrograde equals bad. Uh,
Right.
how you just explained it was amazing. That you are looking back because Mars is going back in this certain aspects, and you get to observe, and as you said, deduct.
Totally. It's also a reversal of the polarities a little bit. So, I tend to believe that a retrograde is introverted and a direct is extroverted. So we tend to go more introverted than we do extroverted. We sort of flip. Same thing also with Mercury retrograde, which we're done with. But when Mercury's retrograde, we tend to go introverted. We're not so extroverted in our thinking. We also usually switch poles as far as intuitive versus logical in the brain. So it's sort of a switching of the gears, a switching of the poles, basically that happens, and it's necessary. It's necessary because it's the pattern of the universe is two steps forward, one step back, two steps forward, one step back. And that's pretty much what direct and retrograde does.
We kind of always rewrite. We get to review. Actually, I've always noticed that when major things come around in my life, it's always kind of slapped me in the face once, at least once, maybe twice beforehand before I get on the ride. Um, and it's not always like the week before, it's sometimes 5 years before. And it seems that like every major thing in my life has been like that. Uh,
Yeah, totally. Well, what happens is that, yeah, the universe reminds us many times. and warns us many times before something's about to happen. Like you are reminded, and it comes up in themes, and that's the cycles and circles of things. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what the planets are. I mean, even Saturn. So Saturn going to Aries, I think it was 1995 that Saturn was last in Aries. So the Clintons were in office. That was the last time that, Saturn in Aries is when suddenly you decide, Saturn, that you're going to take action, you're going to change. So that's one of the reasons why this upcoming year might be a little helter skelter, is because Saturn is pushing us to do something about it. And when Neptune went into Aries last time, the American Civil War began. So when Neptune was in Pisces, the country was debating the morality of slavery and, the morality of, what our country would be. But then when Neptune went into Aries, people took sides. That's it. The discussion was over and people were ready to take action. I don't feel like it's going to be that type of civil war this time, but I do think you're going to have forces that are fighting for influence, whereas before they've been sort of sitting back waiting to see what happens. Next year, you'll see people actually taking action to do stuff.
It definitely feels like a shift or a revolution in many different ways. I mean, the the function of even just artificial intelligence, we're
Mhm.
on Instagram, social media, our phones, the internet massively changed the entire world 25 years ago, and AI is supposed to do that at a much more drastic level and more condensed, more potent. And I think that it's just beginning, that it's completely having influence over a lot of our lives. I mean, for the most part, when I get on anything digital, I don't even know what's real anymore because anything can be made up into a video, into voice. Like we need a different level of discernment. And that's something that is getting birthed in all of us. How do we orient ourselves in this sort of world of digitization that may or may not actually be of factual reality, but it still exists?
Mhm.
It's
It's true.
interesting to me.
It's very interesting. Um, I think the North Node in Pisces is also kind of saying you got to go with what your spirit's telling you. You got to go with what your intuition's telling you. And I think that's part of the new discernment. I think a lot of us have developed our intuition since Neptune's been in Pisces since 2012. We've become aware of the patterns. We become aware of that little voice inside of us, and now we've cleared out a lot of our karma. Our karma being our subconscious triggers, our wounds, and things like that, that would confuse us and not make us not trust our intuition. But now that that's been cleared out, it's now time to really listen to your intuition. And I think part of the, as people start to get a little helter skelter with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, we are forced to intuit, the truth and look to intuition for the truth. AI is interesting without a doubt. I mean, it's going to cause a lot of issues.
Yeah, I want I want to highlight and ask you about what you just said. So you were saying, because I've recognized similar thing about like the focus for me, at least like psychologically, has been on, up until just recently, has been a lot on quieting the voices in the head, because they've been seemingly up until recently been very negative and destructive, and trauma informed. But you just mentioned something that I've been sort of noticing from a different angle, that the voices in the head are also like this sense of intuition. And so, yes, we can discern which is which, but it's like they're there for a reason, and developing a relationship with the intuition can really guide us on our way. Can you elaborate again, like, because you mentioned there was a switch in there. So why is that happening, like between like negative voices and intuition voices?
Well, no, it's that you were saying AI, you don't know what to
Yeah,
trust, right? And that's always been the case, frankly. I mean, honestly, we couldn't trust media, we couldn't
right.
trust a lot
So,
of stuff we really can't trust. Um, and you don't know what to trust. And ultimately, I think it's pushing us to listen to our intuition. With the North Node in Pisces, that's definitely one of the signals. Is like, okay, it's time to go with what your spirit tells you. That means it's time to go with your intuition tells you. That means if your intuition tells you one thing and the information on television is telling you another, I recommend you go with your intuition,
Okay.
you know? And I think this is part of the ascension process. But I also think it's part of being a balanced human. Part of the awakening, in the new era is that we are aware of these invisible intelligence. We're aware of higher self-intelligence. We're aware of other parts of our soul. In the dark ages, the energy got so dense, okay, and the earth became so dense and so compacted that we really only had our thoughts, our ego, and our emotions. That's it. We weren't aware of all these other parts of ourselves. As we've been awakening, we're starting to become aware of these other states of awareness. I'm getting a lot of people talking about how they're having dreams about Atlantis now, that Pluto's in Aquarius. So people are waking up to their past lives like I've never heard before. I was the lonely one talking about it for the last 10 years or so. Now it's becoming common. So you can see us awakening to these other realms.
Yeah, I like how you said that. It's a level of awareness, and with that level of awareness, you have skills to develop in order to sort of recognize the different aspects of this other level of consciousness that we're gaining access to. And I'm feeling that personally. I'm feeling that my dreams have shifted drastically in the last few months, where and almost like I can sit within them and just observe the messages that are coming to me that seem to be like exactly what I need in the moment. And I've never been able to, like, that's never been really a thing for me. um and yeah,
Were your
so
dreams just abstract? I mean, what were they before?
I wasn't really dreaming about specific things. Now it literally feels like a mentor is just like speaking to me every single morning. That lasted for a few months. And then now, as I'm like the time between awake and sleep, it's the same thing. Like, mentor, like, these are the answers that you've been jostling with all day. Like, do this. And like, that's the sort of dream state that I'm becoming conscious of. It might have been there before, but I'm well aware of it now, every single day.
Interesting. I think a lot of things come in our dreams when we don't have the space for it in our waking life. I think sometimes things come in our dreams because we don't want to deal with it in our waking life. Like we want to just deal with it there. It's actually a bonus to deal with in dream realm because you don't have to go through the experience or manifest the drama or anything like that. You can really face like a fear, for instance, in a dream and not have to manifest something that scares you to death in life. I do feel like that if you meditate more or if you spend more time spacing out, which you do when you look at the sun, right? You make that space in your waking life, your dreams will be less usually less prophetic. um but I remember when you're waking up, that first moment of waking up, that's a very magical moment. Actually, allegedly you can create reality much better if you have intention in that time. But I've had so many, I would wake up and I would be told the step system. So the step system was basically narrated to me right when I'd be waking up, and it would be stuff like the number two is yellow. The number two is yellow. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, at first I did not know what it was. I just sort of like, okay, that makes sense. That feels right. And then it just started to piece together over time.
Yeah,
In my waking life, I would recall the dream and I put it together. So when we download stuff, quite often it's in our dreams.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like a sentence of, like you said, prophecy or prophetic. That's exactly what I'm currently going through right now.
Mm, interesting. Yeah. Being guided to. What's your rising sign again? I think Cancer.
Okay,
We
not sure. I'm
got
not
to
sure.
find out.
There's
Sorry
so
to throw you
many,
on this.
Chris. Like, I was going to ask you, you're talking about all these planets going in different things, crossing over different constellations, crossing over each other. Uh, do you see contradiction in any of that, and how do you handle that?
There's contradiction all the time. In fact, right now, Black Moon Lilith is opposing Chiron, which is sort of a contradiction. It's like, two planets opposing each other in opposite directions. And so what that does is pull apart stuff inside of you, right? And right now, what that means is you have an opportunity right now to fall into your fears about relationships or the future, or you can focus on the healing of your relationships and the healing of things to prevent you from the future. It's literally two choices pulling on each other. And I would say in a given, day like today, you might spend an hour afraid of things going wrong, and then the next hour going, no, I can do this. What am I letting myself? So you literally can feel these oppositions or contradictions, in your chart. There's many contradictions, but that's consciousness. Consciousness can be and not be at the same time. You
Right. It's like
know.
being able to hold them together at the same time, um, and still make sense of it all.
Yeah,
This,
totally. I mean, reality is relative, right? It's being created by ourselves. So there is no fact, there is no linear truth.
yeah.
It's basically whatever you're imagining, right?
Carol said my rising sign is Virgo,
Okay,
which is
that's right, it is. Ah, that's very interesting because that means that Libra then is in your 12th house. Is that right? No, 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 I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Leo is in your 12th house. So, so interestingly enough, your creativity and all of your heart stuff comes from your dream life because you have Leo in the 12th. You have Libra, obviously, in the second house.
cool.
Sorry, got a little confused there. So that's interesting. Just because here's what's interesting is well, the South Node is going to go into Virgo. So for all Virgo risings, for all Virgo suns, you will be letting go of lots of parts of yourself for the next 18 months with the South Node in Virgo.
18 months.
Yep,
That's a long shedding,
it
but,
is. Is it
but we're
18
all
or
here for
9?
that.
It's 18. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, the nodes move kind of slowly. But recognize that there's a lot you'll be letting go of. And then the South Node will move into Leo, and at that point you will be letting go of subconscious stuff. So it's just cycles and circles. I know it sounds confusing to someone who doesn't study it, but the truth is it all goes in circles and repeats itself. So astrologers feel like all we do is repeat ourselves
Yeah, but
every
you're constantly having information to say about it, and it's like being colored. The thing that I like about listening to astrologers is that you guys all seem pretty excited to like observe what's happening and then um, basically put it into words for everybody to listen to. And
yeah.
you do it in your own way. Uh, and I get my texts from Serious Joy multiple times a day, which is amazing because it's always relevant. I think that it took me a few weeks to really not trust, but like take the moment to actually observe it, because it's like, oh, I got another text, and then it was like, oh wait, these are actually like exactly relevant to this moment. What does it mean when we get a text from your app and it says like 2 hours?
Ah,
Like,
it means that the energy we're describing will last for the next 2 hours.
okay, that's what I thought. I was just making sure. I was like, is it going to happen in 2 hours or is it 2 hours from now?
We're trying to save letters. We
I
used to say next 2 hours. Now we do 2 hours. That's a good point. We started reporting on smaller energies in the day, which are called with texts. I call them with texts after my last name. So like when there's a little bit of an influx, so people can start to put together, like, I was all pissed off after lunch, I don't know what got to me. And we want to be like, oh, well, that might happen for the next 2 hours. So that's really using the moon or other small or other planets that are coming to a conjunction or coming to an aspect. Um, and really I'm doing it to show off. I
yeah,
mean, because
it
it's
was working.
really really like, oh my God,
It
it's
is
amazing how accurate it is. It's just amazing.
like like it really is like profound, and I think it's great that you have the like it's the confidence to send these that is like somehow relevant to everyone individually, because they're not always the same messages that are getting sent to everyone. I mean, because my wife and I have it and we're getting different messages that are relevant to each other.
Right, totally. Everyone gets a different message, but then those global ones, those with text, they apply to everybody. So it's sort of like conscious weather that hits. And a lot of the reason for that is, to realize that you're not in control as much as you think you are. That's the weird thing about astrology. I mean, we have free will, but there's a cycle. Consciousness goes through the same pattern. It goes through the same cycle. And the one thing that we don't have free will about is the universe telling us to pay attention to something. And that's what astrology is. Pay attention to this. Now, tomorrow, pay attention to that. And you will find that you are paying attention to it, and you did not think, you did not decide to do it. It just happened. So human beings are on this conscious merry-go-round.
Wow. Yeah, and the the scenes that the attention is being paid to are all just they're our own sort of bubble or creation or reality that we're all experiencing individually in a different way, but somehow collectively all together. Um,
Yes. Well, like right now, everyone is paying attention to their decisions for themselves. Everyone's paying attention to decisions to make for themselves. Everyone makes different decisions for themselves. Everyone's at a different state. Some are mature at making decisions, some are immature making decisions. So people are all at different levels. But every year at winter solstice, we start thinking about decisions for ourselves. Every year. That state of awareness becomes active. And the theory is because the sun is in front of these stars of a constellation. So the theory of astrology is it's not this little sign that's in Capricorn sign. That's actually just like a marker we used ancient times ago. That all these little constellations, we just use them as markers to remember this part of the year.
yeah,
But we believe it is the millions of stars in that section, that millions of stars, they're all vibrating certain frequencies. And then those stars pass our sun,
which
sort of absorbs that collective energy. And then our sun is our energy provider. So our sun actually gets colored by the millions of stars in Capricorn.
that completely makes sense to me. The way that
Yeah.
I sort of the main perspective I use when I think about the universe is that the sun is like a node and it's all connected, whether it's electrically or plasmically or some other force that I don't know, but all of those other stars are connected to our sun and then we're connected to the sun. So we're connected to everything, but it makes sense if you think about directions that all that energy is coming into the sun and then pointed directly at the earth.
Giving the earth all of its energy. So all the energy on the earth is colored by the millions of stars in the Capricorn region. And those millions of stars draw our attention to decision making, one of the states of awareness of being humans, to make a decision, to make a commitment during this time.
And somehow, so this is the thing that, so that makes sense, I think, even to like a scientifically minded person. But somehow, I think that people struggle with like the science being shapes that then they made into like a figure like Capricorn or like Virgo, like, and that kind of seems like make believe to some people because they drew it into a figure and then that figure has an orientation towards certain vibrations. But if we take the figure out of it and we just say like there's millions of stars that are vibrating in this energy and we're absorbing that energy, it seems hard to say like no, that's not true. But it's easy to say like no, that's not true, that there's a warrior painted in the sky and that means that we're in like our essence of a warrior.
Well, we just use that symbol to remind us in the sky what time of the year it was for us. So, the Aries symbol, all those symbols, they're made by the Mesopotamians, and they, I'm not I mean, my intuition, I don't have this, obviously I haven't studied this, but my intuition is that we just started noticing that whenever the sun is here, people go this way. I think we also would have children according to it. So we knew if we got our wife pregnant now, we'd have a warrior. If we got our wife pregnant now, we'd have this kind of person. So I think that's how astrology started. That's what I intuit. I have no proof of that. Um, but basically it's from observation. Like it's all from observation. Nobody sat and made it up. People noticed. I mean, I think back in the ancient days, there was no TV, there was no entertainment.
Right.
You just watched each other, and you noticed things about each other that you didn't, notice otherwise. So we came to understand it. But then the Vedic, which is India, they also came to understand it in their own terms, noticing the cycles of the stars. I mean, all night long, all we did was look at the stars and we saw where the planets were going. So it was really our clock. It was what time it was.
Yeah. I mean, even like when we're traveling around Europe, going to these very old churches, they have like clocks on the walls that are astrological, like zodiacs, like in church. Like they paid attention to it, and we're taught that they're kind of like separate. Are no, 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 not separate. But yeah, it's amazing that it's real and much more real in the past than it seems to be to uh, the tradition or the conventional wisdom nowadays. It's not taught in school, is what I'm saying.
That's going to change.
Is it?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, that's not to make my career go well. I mean, that's the age of Aquarius, the understanding that, really we are affected by all the stars around us. We're affected by other civilizations around us that we don't know about. We're consciously connected to the alien species. From what I understand, like for instance, talking to Palladians, the reason why detonating nuclear bombs is bad is because it affects the other aliens. It affects everyone in the whole Milky Way. There's something about it that disrupts all their stuff.
Yeah.
We're connected, and that's why they don't want nukes.
Right.
Is yes, it's nice to not destroy ourselves, but you're kind of farting on the rest of the universe. I
Especially
mean,
like it's not just this reality. There's dimensions or
right.
densities to reality, and a nuclear bomb is so powerful that it transcends this physical reality and can disrupt like the consciousness of the entire solar system, or our entire galaxy gets disrupted because we're making these bombs. And there's stories of people that say that like there's not a single nuclear warhead that
Works
can go
anymore.
off now. Yeah, because the ETs have turned them off because it's destroying them.
Yes, it's dangerous to them. It's dangerous to everybody. You silly humans, you can't do this. What's interesting is going to the future, we're going to start discovering planets outside of our solar system. We already have an idea of a couple, and those planets represent uh, intergalaxy consciousness. So, everything from the sun to Pluto is the solar system, the soul's system. So it's all only human. Okay. After Pluto, it is the human race's relationship to the galaxy, and it's also the chakras above the head.
Nice.
So we have several chakras above the head, and these new planets will each represent these chakras. And I
So
believe that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say off the record, which is really on the record, but off the record, do you have awareness of these planets and the messages that you're saying, or the map that they can be revealed?
There's a lot of theories out there. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it, but technically, for instance, when Earth discovers a planet, Earth recognizes that state of awareness that the planet represents. So, for
That
instance, Uranus was discovered in the 40s, and so was, and electricity and uranium and nuclear and the atom. All that came with the discovery of Uranus. Uranus rules all that, and humankind became aware of that when we became aware of the planet. So we would most likely, with the discovery of another planet, we'll be discovering a part of human consciousness that we had not seen before or ignored.
And I like that you mentioned the chakras above our body and even below our body too, right? Like they extend outside of this physical body, and we're mostly just paying attention to the seven energy systems within the body, because that's us all about self. Like I am the only thing that's important. It makes sense that a new planet gets discovered, we somehow get more realness of what's going on in the fields outside of our body and how it connects with everybody else. And
Yeah, it's interesting that Pluto is the last planet, and it is a planet, damn it, no matter what science says. Um, and Pluto represents boundaries, which strangely enough tells you that human beings only learned about boundaries really last, right? Because as we just said with
Yeah.
Pluto, we discovered boundaries, we discovered our power to draw boundaries. And it's also the number zero, Pluto. And it's interesting because, like the Romans didn't have the number zero in their mathematical system. Many, that's an advanced idea, a placeholder for something that could be, but maybe isn't. That's a complex conscious idea. And again, Pluto is the last planet. So it's one of the last things that came on to humans. I would say humans still haven't learned these planets, to be honest. We're just now, I mean, that's what my work is like the 12 states of awareness, all the steps. Your consciousness is more than your mind. You have your heart, your intuition, you have your body, you have your ego. We're really only now mastering our solar system, in my opinion.
So amazing because it's it's just a beautiful symphony that's happening up there, and it's also happening exactly in coordination with our lives.
You do.
And and it's yeah, I I've learned more in these discussions with you than I have in my entire life about this subject, like put together.
Yay.
So super grateful for that.
My
And
pleasure.
then if anybody's listening, do you have anything to wrap up before we bounce
Um,
out of here?
let's just see, like some notes. Just realize that, this week is about making new commitments to yourself. And if you want to change your life, you need to change your commitments to yourself, because you are the creator of your life, and it all starts with you. So believe it or not, committing to feeling better in life will end the things that make you feel bad. Committing to believing yourself will end the confusion and lack of information, like because we are manifesting our reality. So the other thing I want to let people know is, you might have been here 1,000 times, like with New Year's resolution, like I'm gonna lose weight this year, I swear. But this year you will. This year you
There
most
you go.
likely will. So don't give up. Don't hesitate to try again, and go there. We are meant to become better. Everyone's improving and becoming a better version of themselves. And so no matter where you are, you're going to go up, you're going to go higher. It actually takes work to stay in the old. So, be positive, I would say, if you can, because Capricorn can be a little mopey. It can be a little sad sometimes. It can be a little cold. It's ruled by Saturn, which is, the source of Satan, the idea of Satan, to cut off from God. So, you can, Capricorn has the ability to cut off your feelings, cut off your intuition. And so just be careful to use that control to be aware of everything rather than cut things out. That'd be my general advice for the week. But astrologically, it's a very quiet week. We're basically just coming into new conclusions and new realizations about ourself and our life in preparation for the next year.
It's like the space. It's like the space after the exhale, right before the inhale.
Okay, yes. I had to think about that for a minute. Yeah, basically, and it is like the end of the year, like, it's the end of the year. In our minds, it's the end of the year. And so, I think we're all, and we go until this time of the year, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Tuesday, is it Wednesday? Wednesday will be my first day off, and I don't know how long, So, we take this reflective time and we realize things, you know. But it's an interesting time we live in. It's only going to get more interesting next year. Hang on to your seats. And I'll just say, shameless plug. I mean, join Serious Joy right now because the next couple of months are really. You could use some handholding. People could use the messages because there's a lot of choices that are more profound than they normally are. So it'd be helpful to have something that's reminding you of that.
Yes. SeriousJoy.com, Serious Joy on YouTube, sj.seriousjoy. Sorry, said that wrong. sj.serious.joy on Instagram. It's pinned right now, guys, if you want to click on that. And I'm happy for you, Chris, for your day off on Wednesday, and I'm happy for everybody else for being able to listen to this. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, brother. It's nice seeing you.
Yeah,
Happy holidays.
you too. Bye-bye.
Ciao.